In 1490, a painter in a small town in the Netherlands sat down and painted something that no one has been able to fully explain since. Not because it is abstract, not because it is technically confusing, but because it is perfectly clear, every detail rendered with extraordinary precision, and yet 500 years of looking at it have not produced a single agreed answer about what it actually means. The painting is called The Garden of Earthly Delights. The painter was Hieronymus Bosch, and what he created is, in the most literal sense, the most debated painting in the history of Western art. But to understand why this painting is so extraordinary, we first need to understand what kind of object it actually is. Because this is not just a painting, it is a triptych, 3 separate panels connected by hinges, designed to fold shut like a book. When it is closed, the outside panels show something quiet and almost eerie. The earth on the 3rd day of creation, before any living thing exists. The colors are grey and green and muted. God appears as a tiny figure in the upper left corner, watching. The world is empty, silent, waiting. When you open it, everything changes. The left panel shows the Garden of Eden. God is introducing Eve to Adam, who has just woken from sleep and is staring at her with an expression that has been described as bewildered, enchanted, and slightly terrified all at once. The landscape around them is lush and strange. Animals wander freely. A giraffe stands in the background. A tall pink fountain rises from a lake at the center. It is paradise, but already something feels slightly off. The garden is a little too wild, a little too unpredictable. There is beauty here, but also the sense that something is about to go wrong. The right panel is hell, and Bosch's hell is unlike anything painted before or since. It is not the dramatic inferno you might expect. It is not fire and brimstone in the traditional sense. It is cold and dark and deeply strange. Musical instruments become instruments of torture. A man is crucified on a harp. A pair of giant ears walk on legs, carrying a blade between them. A bird-headed creature sits on a throne swallowing sinners and excreting them into a pit below. It is grotesque, yes, but what makes it genuinely disturbing is not the violence, it is the absurdity. Damnation in Bosch's world does not look like punishment. It looks like meaninglessness, a world where nothing makes sense and no one is in charge. But the central panel, the panel that gives the entire work its name, is the strangest of all. The Garden of Earthly Delights is vast and pink and teeming with life. Hundreds of naked human figures move through a landscape of impossible giant fruit, fantastical animals, and translucent floating spheres. They bathe in pools, ride enormous birds and fish, carry strawberries the size of houses, emerge from shells and engage in activities that range from merely unusual to completely inexplicable. At the center of the composition, a great circular procession of figures on horseback rides endlessly around a pool of women. Everywhere you look, something catches your eye, something you cannot quite categorize. For centuries, the standard interpretation was simple. This is a moral warning. Eden on the left, the temptations of the flesh in the center, hell on the right. The story of humanity's fall, told in 3 acts. But scholars began noticing a problem with that reading. The figures in the central panel do not look tortured. They do not look guilty. They look peaceful, playful even. There is no darkness here, no shadow of the hell to come. If Bosch intended this as a warning, he made sin look extraordinarily appealing. And so other theories emerged. Some historians argued that the central panel actually depicts humanity before the fall, a vision of innocent paradise that could only exist in the imagination. Others have suggested it represents a heretical movement known as the Adamites, a sect who believed that by returning to the naked innocence of Adam and Eve, they could exist without sin entirely. Others still have proposed it is a dream, a hallucination, or a meditation on the impossibility of pleasure. And then there are the details that resist every interpretation. In the central panel, a couple sits together inside a transparent sphere, placed on top of a fantastical fruit floating on the lake. The man has his hand on the woman's stomach. Just nearby, another couple is tucked discreetly inside the part-closed shell of a blue mussel, with giant birds watching from the left. Everywhere you look, intimacy is hidden inside objects, inside shells, inside fruit, inside glass. But look more carefully at those spheres. They are not protection, they are a warning. Each figure enclosed in glass is living in their own isolated world, sealed off from consequence, from reflection, from anything beyond the pleasure of the present moment. And glass, as any person in the 15th century would have understood immediately, is fragile. It shatters. These bubbles, and everything happening inside them, are as temporary and delicate as a soap bubble catching the light. They will burst. They always burst. And what Bosch is telling you, quietly, without a single word, is that a life built entirely on momentary pleasure is a life built on nothing at all. And that is the argument running underneath this entire painting. Because here is what Bosch understood, that almost no other artist of his time had the courage to show. You cannot warn people away from pleasure by making it look ugly. Nobody has ever looked at something repulsive and felt tempted. So Bosch did something far more dangerous. He made it look exactly as beautiful as it actually feels. Every color in the central panel is warm and luminous. Every face is calm. Every figure looks free. He gave sin its full appeal, deliberately, because that is the only honest way to tell this story. And then, he built the trap. Look at the circular procession at the center of the panel. Hundreds of figures on horseback riding endlessly around a pool of women, round and round, going nowhere, achieving nothing. It looks like celebration. It looks like joy. But it is a wheel, and wheels do not go anywhere. They just keep turning. Bosch is showing you what a life organized entirely around desire actually looks like from the outside. Not wicked, not dramatic, just pointless, just motion without destination. Every giant strawberry, every oversized cherry, every figure feeding fruit into the mouth of another is part of the same language. To Bosch's contemporaries, fruit was an unmistakable symbol of lust and temptation, rooted all the way back to Eden, to the original fruit, to the original choice. So when Bosch fills an entire panel with figures gorging on fruit the size of buildings, he is not being playful. He is showing you humanity making the same mistake, over and over, at an incomprehensible scale. This is what the three panels mean together. The left panel shows you the world as it was given. Perfect, full of possibility, requiring only one thing, that you not mistake the gift for the point. The central panel shows you what happens when humanity does exactly that, when the garden becomes the goal, when pleasure stops being part of life and becomes the entirety of it. And the right panel shows you where that logic ends, not in dramatic punishment, but in cold, absurd, mechanical meaninglessness. A world where even the torture makes no sense, where there is no order, no mercy, no way out, because there was never any intention of finding one. And the detail that ties all three panels together is the one most people walk straight past. At the center of hell stands the tree man. His legs are hollow dead trees. His torso is a cracked, rotten eggshell. And inside that shell, tiny figures sit in a tavern, drinking, laughing, completely oblivious. They are still doing what the figures in the central panel were doing. Still consuming, still indulging, still not paying attention. They have arrived in hell, and they have not even noticed, because they were never paying attention to begin with. Deep in the hell panel, a man is being crushed by a giant lute, and tattooed across his backside is a musical score. In 2014, a music student named Amelia Hamrick transcribed those notes and recorded the result. She titled it The 500-Year-Old Butt Song from Hell. It went viral immediately. The melody is haunting, coherent, and genuinely beautiful in a deeply unsettling way. And that is exactly Bosch's point. Even here, branded onto a body being crushed for eternity by the very instrument that once brought him pleasure, the music is still there. The song from hell is the same song from the central panel. It just sounds different when you are trapped inside it. King Philip II of Spain kept this painting not in a public gallery, but in his private rooms, something to return to again and again. And you can understand why, because this is not a painting you finish. Every time you look, you find another detail that feeds back into the argument. Another bubble, another piece of fruit, another figure riding in a circle going nowhere. Today, it hangs in the Museo del Prado in Madrid. 2 million people stand in front of it every year. Most stay longer than they planned. Most leave with more questions than they arrived with. But underneath all the strangeness, underneath 5 centuries of debate, the painting is saying something remarkably simple. It is saying, pay attention to what you are doing, to why you are doing it, to where it is leading. Because pleasure is real, and beauty is real, and joy is real. Bosch never denied any of that. He painted it more vividly than almost anyone before or since.